You have never touched anything in your entire life. Not your phone, not your coffee cup, not the person you love, nothing. Ever. And I'm not speaking metaphorically here, I'm not being poetic. I'm telling you a literal physical fact about the universe that will change how you see everything around you. My name is Leonard Susskind, and after 50 years of studying physics, I have absolute certainty that the sensation you call touch is one of the most profound illusions your brain has ever created. Right now, you think you're touching something. Maybe you're holding your phone, sitting in a chair, resting your hand on a table. You feel solid contact, pressure, the sensation of one thing meeting another. Is telling you that your atoms and the atoms, that object, are making contact, physically connecting, touching. Your brain is lying to you. It's creating a sensation that corresponds to something that never, ever happens in the physical world. Here's what's actually occurring when you think you're touching something. The atoms in your hand and the atoms in whatever you think you're touching are getting close to each other, very close. But they never, ever make contact. Instead, something far stranger happens. The electrons in your hand, specifically the electrons in the outermost shells of the atoms in your skin, start interacting with the electrons in the outer shells of the atoms in the object. But these electrons don't touch either. They repel each other. You see, electrons carry negative electric charge, and negative charges repel other negative charges. It's one of the most fundamental laws of physics. Like charges repel, opposite charges attract. When the electrons in your hand get close to the electrons in an object, they push against each other with what we call the electromagnetic force. This repulsion creates a barrier, an invisible wall that prevents your atoms from ever getting close enough to actually touch the atoms of the object. Think about that for a moment. When you shake someone's hand, when you hug someone you love, when you pet your dog, your atoms and their atoms never make contact. You're feeling the electromagnetic repulsion between electrons. You're feeling an invisible force field. The sensation your brain interprets as touch is actually your nervous system detecting the electromagnetic forces between atoms that are desperately trying to avoid each other. The distances we're talking about are unimaginably small. The closest your atoms can get to another object's atoms before electromagnetic repulsion becomes overwhelming is roughly 1 or 2 angstroms. An angstrom is 1/10,000,000th of a meter. To put this in perspective, if an atom were the size of a marble, 1 angstrom would be about the thickness of a human hair compared to the marble. These distances are so small that they might as well be zero for any practical purpose. But in physics, almost zero and actually zero are completely different things. Your atoms and the atoms of everything around you are separated by electromagnetic force fields. You live in a world of invisible barriers, electromagnetic walls that keep everything separate at the most fundamental level. When you sit in a chair, you're not really sitting on it. You're hovering above it, suspended by electromagnetic repulsion, floating on an invisible cushion of electric force. The gap is undetectable to your senses, but it's there, always there. This isn't some esoteric theoretical physics concept. This is the reason matter feels solid to you. If electromagnetic repulsion didn't exist, if atoms could actually touch each other, you would fall through your chair, through the floor, through the earth itself. Matter feels solid specifically because atoms cannot occupy the same space. The electromagnetic force is what gives objects their apparent solidity, their resistance to compression, their ability to support weight. But here's where this gets truly mind-bending. You never touch anything, but nothing in the universe ever touches anything else. Ever. Think about this carefully. The keyboard I'm typing on, the air molecules around us, the water in the ocean, the rocks deep inside the earth, none of it is ever in direct contact with anything else. Everything in the physical universe is held apart by electromagnetic force fields. Every atom in your body is surrounded by invisible barriers that prevent it from ever making contact with any other atom, including other atoms in your own body. The implications of this are staggering. Your hand is not a solid object. It's a collection of atoms held together by electromagnetic forces, with each atom separated from every other atom by tiny but real gaps. It is mostly empty space, held together by invisible forces, never actually touching itself. You are not a solid, continuous thing, or a complex arrangement of particles suspended in force fields, giving the illusion of solidity. This raises profound questions about identity and existence. If your atoms never touch each other, mostly empty space held together by forces, then what exactly are you? Where do you end and the outside world begins? If there's always a gap, always a separation, always an electromagnetic barrier between you and everything else, then in what sense are you connected to the world around you? In what sense are you separate from it? The answer is that the boundaries we perceive, the separation between self and world, between one object and another, are constructs of our nervous system, evolved to interpret electromagnetic repulsion as solid contact because that interpretation was useful for survival. An ancestor who could feel the electromagnetic forces between their hand and a rock could use that rock as a tool. An ancestor who could feel the forces between their feet and the ground could walk without falling. The sensation of touch is evolution's solution to the problem of navigating a world of invisible force fields. But evolution didn't evolve our brains to understand physics. It evolved them to survive and reproduce. The fact that our nervous system creates the sensation of solid contact doesn't mean solid contact actually exists. It means that experiencing electromagnetic repulsion as touch was advantageous for our ancestors. Your brain is constantly creating a simplified, useful model of reality that allows you to function in the world. But that model is not reality itself. This has implications that extend far beyond physics. Every handshake that ever mattered to you, every embrace that comforted you, every gentle touch that conveyed love or reassurance, all of these experiences were electromagnetic interactions between force fields. Does this make them less real, less meaningful? I don't think so. The electromagnetic forces between your atoms and someone else's atoms are still real forces. The information they convey to your nervous system is still real information. The emotions they trigger are still real emotions. But understanding what's actually happening changes something fundamental about your relationship to the physical world. You are not separate from the electromagnetic fields that surround you. You are held together by them. Every sensation you call touch is actually your nervous system's way of interpreting these invisible forces. You don't live in the world. You are part of the world's electromagnetic structure. Let me take this even further. When you think you're holding something, what's really happening is that the electromagnetic fields generated by the electrons in your hand are interacting with the electromagnetic fields generated by the electrons in the object. These fields extend beyond the atoms themselves. In a very real sense, your electromagnetic field is touching the object's electromagnetic field. You are touching things, just not in the way you think you are. You're touching them with invisible force fields that extend beyond your physical boundaries. This means that you are, right now, electromagnetically connected to everything around you. Your force field is interacting with the force fields of the air molecules near your skin, which are interacting with other air molecules, which are interacting with the walls of the room, which are interacting with the building, which is interacting with the earth. You are part of a vast, interconnected web of electromagnetic interactions that extends throughout the entire universe. When I shake your hand, my electromagnetic field interacts with your electromagnetic field. Information is exchanged, forces are transmitted. In a very real physical sense, we become temporarily connected to our force fields. This is not mysticism. This is not New Age philosophy. This is physics. You are electromagnetically connected to every person you've ever met, every object you've ever held, every surface you've ever walked on. The boundary between you and the rest of the universe is not as clear-cut as your senses suggest. Your atoms are held apart from other atoms by forces, but forces connect as much as they separate. The electromagnetic repulsion that prevents you from touching anything also connects you to everything. Every time you think you're touching something, a network of electromagnetic interactions that spans the entire physical world. Now, you might ask, if electromagnetic repulsion is what prevents atoms from touching, what about the strong nuclear force that holds atomic nuclei together? Don't protons and neutrons actually touch each other inside the nucleus? The answer is no, they don't. Even inside atomic nuclei, particles don't touch in the classical sense. The strong force is another type of field interaction mediated by particles called gluons. Protons and neutrons are held together by gluon fields, make direct contact any more than electrons do. In fact, when you go deeper, protons and neutrons themselves are not solid objects. They're made of quarks by more gluon fields, And quarks, as far as we know, have no internal structure. They might be truly point, like particles with no size at all. So even at the deepest level we understand, there's no solid contact, no actual touching, just field interactions and forces. This raises the question, is anything in the universe actually solid? The answer depends on what you mean by solid. If you mean continuous, unbroken matter with no internal structure, then no, nothing is solid. Everything is made of particles separated by empty space and held together by force fields. But if you mean resistant to deformation, able to maintain structure, capable of supporting weight, then yes, many things are solid. Solidity is an emergent property that arises from electromagnetic interactions, not from any fundamental touching or contact. The table you think you're leaning on is solid in the sense that it resists your weight and maintains its shape. But it does this through electromagnetic repulsion between atoms, any actual contact between solid materials. The solidity is real, but it's not what you think it is. It's a collective behavior that emerges from trillions of atoms all pushing against each other with electromagnetic force. This has practical implications for understanding materials, engineering, and even biology. The strength of steel comes from electromagnetic interactions between iron atoms. The flexibility of your muscles comes from electromagnetic forces between protein molecules. The structure of your DNA is maintained by electromagnetic attractions and repulsions between atoms. Everything that matters about the physical world comes down to electromagnetic field interactions, not actual touching. When you realize this, the boundary between physics and philosophy starts to blur. If you never actually touch anything, if you're mostly empty space held together by invisible forces, if your sense of solidity and contact is an illusion created by your nervous system, then what does this say about the nature of physical reality? What does it mean to exist as a physical being in a universe where nothing ever actually touches anything else? I think it means that the universe is far stranger and more beautiful than we usually imagine. You are not a solid object moving through empty space. You are a complex pattern of electromagnetic fields, constantly interacting with other field patterns, part of a vast web of invisible forces that connects everything to everything else. Every sensation you've ever had of touching something was actually your participation in this cosmic electromagnetic dance. The next time you hold someone's hand, remember what's really happening. Your electromagnetic field is interacting with their electromagnetic field. Information is flowing between you through invisible forces, becoming part of the same electromagnetic system. In a universe where nothing ever touches anything else, this is as close to contact as physics allows. And somehow, it's enough. You never touch anything. But in a universe of force fields and invisible connections, perhaps touching isn't what matters. Perhaps what matters is that you're always connected, always interacting, always part of the electromagnetic symphony that is physical reality. You don't touch the world, you are the world, participating in its deepest, most fundamental processes. That's what physics has taught me about touch. It's not what we think it is, but it's far more profound than we ever imagined. You live in a universe of invisible forces made of those same forces. Every sensation of contact is your nervous system's interpretation of electromagnetic field interactions. You never touch anything, and somehow that makes everything you do touch infinitely more meaningful. Welcome to the universe, as it really is. No solid contact, no actual touching, just force fields and connections everywhere. Binding everything together in an invisible web of electromagnetic interaction, you are part of that web. You always have been, you always will be, and that's far more beautiful than any simple touching could ever be.